These are the
Сила. Никишин здорово там. Решил сам прорываться. Хоккей на встречных курсах. Сила.
Закрыл Никишин зону. Бросок, гол, девятку. Какой бросок невероятный, а? Интервью, да?
Ой, Андрей, музыка звучит. Попрошу коллег чуть-чуть посмотреть.
The Hurricanes have a lot of young, exciting prospects, but none of them are as coveted as Alexander Nikishin. As he sets the KHL on fire with his amazing skating ability, his size, physical brand of play, and scoring ability, the Hurricanes may have just found their next franchise defenseman. Size, strength, and skating ability. These are the foundations of Alexander Nikishin's game. His edge work allows him to bait and deceive forecheckers. This also gives him great abilities to move the puck on transition and distribute it, as well as execute well-timed offensive zone entries. His capabilities skating combined with his frame make it difficult to take a puck away from Nikishin. Once he decides where he wants to be positioned, a combination of brute force and finesse will take over. With edge work this proficient, creates his own passing lanes and creates his own shooting lanes. This makes him a constant offensive threat, as he can always look for open ice, to position himself well to shoot, or to be a passing option, and preemptively position himself to defend off of the rush. Even more impressive than his edge work is his speed. Nikishin seamlessly transitions into his stride, has excellent acceleration and great stride extension. This allows him to create time and space or reduce time and space as needed, with or without the puck. This skating ability also lends itself well to the defensive side of his game, as he has very aggressive gap control. Puck carriers have little to no time to make a decision with Alexander Nikishin on the ice, and his upper body strength gives him excellent poke checking ability. But the real calling card of his defensive game is his physicality. One of the reasons why Alexander Nikishin has the nickname of Boom is his ability to lay seismic, thunderous hip checks. Being stable on his skates and having incredible core strength gives him this checking ability, and he uses it to ruthlessly deny entry. Nikishin's intimidating physicality can single-handedly neutralize a rush. Even if the puck carrier manages to chip it past Nikishin, he'll make sure that that's as far as they go. He never passes up an opportunity to finish a hit, and everyone knows it. A lot of times, puck carriers will distribute errant passes, and this results in a lot of turnovers. And if nothing else, those are forced just by Nikishin's presence alone. This high-intensity game extends to him defending in and around his own net, where he uses his strength to not allow a net front presence to materialize and to help out his goaltender. Nikishin also has an impressive shot blocking ability. Using his frame and pure athleticism, this adds another layer of sandpaper on top of all the skill. This high-intensity style of play also lends itself to the other end of the ice. Nikishin is very aggressive at pinching, keeping pucks in, and keeping plays alive. Nikishin often acts as a fourth forward, and you'll find him spending a lot of time deep in the offensive zone, contributing to creating scoring chances. These situations are where the decisiveness in Alexander Nikishin's game stands out the most. Nikishin plays a zero-hesitation game and is incredibly confident when he has the puck. As an extension of his abilities and his desire to keep the play going at the other end of the ice, he generates a lot of high-danger chances of his own. Even with all those capabilities, he generates even more offense off of the rush. With a good hockey IQ that's only going to get better, Alexander Nikishin identifies the perfect time to join the rush and where to find open ice to make himself the best passing option and to maximize his positioning for the best shot opportunity. Another noticeable thing about Alexander Nikishin's game is that he is always mobile. His feet are always moving. Even at his own blue line, he is constantly positioning himself to make the next best play. This adds another layer to his very nuanced offensive game of being a puck distributor and a shooter. Alexander Nikishin also has great vision, and he uses it in all three zones. This is where his constant skating and his vision are a deadly combination. Nikishin makes stretch passes that have similar mechanics to most players taking a wrist shot. They are very crisp, they are very decisive, and they almost always get to their intended recipient. He also uses this great passing ability in the offensive zone, making cross-ice seam passes materialize seemingly out of nowhere at times. The high-intensity game that Alexander Nikishin plays is also supplemented by his two-way game. His speed allows him to play a high-risk, high-reward brand of offense and have the speed to get back to cover defensively. All of these things combined make Alexander Nikishin valuable at both ends of the ice and in all situations, be it regulation, overtime, 5-on-5, power play, or penalty kill. But as proficient as his ability to pass the puck, his timing joining the rush, wrist shots, and snapshots are, he has one weapon in his offensive arsenal even deadlier than that. The other reason Alexander Nikishin has the nickname of Boom is that it's the most descriptive word every time that he takes a slap shot or a one-timer. Nikishin has the art of the one-timer down to a science. His shots are not only powerful, but they're accurate, and while he's capable in all situations, the power play might be where he stands out the most. Nikishin's one-timer strikes fear into penalty killers, and forces them to pay attention to where he's at on the ice well before he has possession of the puck. With Nikishin having great edge work and being an active defenseman, the abilities as a distributor and the abilities as a shooter make Nikishin the ideal power play quarterback. He identifies the best times to shoot, the best time to move to try and open up penalty killing formations, and identifies holes in penalty killing formations to distribute passes, and to shoot for rebounds. The speed, skill, and physical edge that Alexander Nikishin brings is unreal. Alexander Nikishin is a complete defenseman. He provides everything that a team could want on the power play and on the penalty kill. He has size and he knows how to use it. His skating ability is well above average to say the least. It's not very often a player comes around, all the intangibles, all the defensive responsibility, all the speed, all the skill, and all the offensive production at the same time, and he's only 22. Nikishin is just getting started. And now that we've looked at the basics of his game, the following full sequences of play will dissect his game even further. Of responsibility. Oncoming rush that summarizes allows him to telegraph the pass that the puck carrier is about to make, and he uses his great skating ability to execute a textbook open ice check. If there is any moment in this video that summarizes what Alexander Nikishin does best, this is it. This shows him truly living up to his nickname. If NHL development coaches could genetically engineer a defenseman in a lab, the end result would be Alexander Nikishin. With him, there is Calder Trophy potential, and there is Norris Trophy potential. And even before coming over to play in the NHL, he's already putting them on notice. Ready or not, here comes the boom.
Everybody, I don't know about you, but I am incredibly excited at the idea of Alexander Nikishin playing in the playoffs. I know that there's some debate about that. However, that's going to be the first two things that I talk about is that. I'm going to talk a little bit about round one with the Devils. I don't know if I'm going to get to do a playoff forecast like I want to. I started working on one. It's just going to depend on time. You probably can't see if there's a ton of boxes and stuff behind me because I'm getting packed up and getting ready to move to South Carolina. So this may be the last stream that I get in. I'm going to try to get in one more before Sunday or maybe Sunday morning even. But I just wanted to do the player grades at least. All the inputs on those are done and everything like that. Griff, AB, Sam, both Sams actually from the Caniac Report will be joining us. Griff and AB, my buddies from Caniac Sessions, will also be joining us. As far as I know, everybody's going to be here. So we'll get to here. Let me get this ring light working. I forgot about that. Ow. There we go. All right. So first things first here. I got a couple of written notes here about the first two things that I'm going to talk about. And give me 1 second here. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to cover, or let me get to some of the comments first, and then we'll talk about that. Dylan Bollinger says, rewatching Carolina Hurricanes playoff goals, hoping Stahl has a series like he did against the Predators in 21 and seeing McGinn and Fogle out there. I love McGinn and Fogle, especially McGinn. TY2X, what's up, dude? What state you moving from? I am moving from Northern Virginia, which is basically Washington, D.C. It is nothing like the rest of Virginia. It's completely different. You drive 2 hours south of here, they have accents and they're constantly offering you boiled peanuts. Here, it ain't like that. It's like, I'd be perfectly honest, I don't even, like, I'm near the nation's capital, and a lot of days I don't even feel like I'm in fucking America. So that's going to change here soon. I'm really happy about that. I'm looking forward to taking that dog over there to the beach. Him and I went for a good long walk just now. My dad just texted me one of the pictures I sent him of Nikishin. He's like, wow, the kid is a monster. I'm like, yeah, he is. And we need a player like that. Dylan also says, like he did, yeah. Mark Beats, what's up? Welcome to the show. I think there's a chance Ghost comes out for Nikishin because the power play is so bad. I don't know about that one. I'm going to get into that right now with what I'm going to talk about. So the first thing I believe here is that I think that I gave this a lot of thought, and this is part of the reason that the show didn't start immediately when I had this stream stuff up, because I have not watched as much footage of Alexander Nikishin as the scouts or Rod or the coaching staff or anybody at Canes Prospects or Hockey News Hub or anybody like that has. What I can tell you is the footage that I clipped for that video, I watched repetitiously while I was in the process of creating it and editing it. And I watched it so much, you start to pick out more and more things you didn't see the first time. It's kind of like, you know, the first few times you watch the original Star Wars, you probably don't notice the part where the stormtrooper bumps his head on the door. You know, I know I didn't notice that for like the first 3 or 4 times that I watched it. And then now that I've rewatched all that footage with Nikishin, I'm like picking more and more out about his game. And I would think maybe I'm going to find something here that I don't like. Maybe I'm going to find some sort of deficiency in his game that would tell me maybe this needs to wait. Maybe he doesn't need to make his debut during the playoffs. Maybe this can wait until next season, or we only put him in the event that there's an injury, or we need to wait until we're up in the series pretty well and then maybe introduce him to it. And I have given this a lot of thought. My ultimate conclusion is, yes, I believe Alexander Nikishin needs to come in the lineup. This kid is not some normal player. He's not a run-of-the-mill prospect by any means. A lot of people argue that the American Hockey League is the second best league in the world. I disagree. I think the K is. Now, those two leagues have a lot of things in common in regards to they're chock full of future NHLers and past NHLers, and then skill levels of all kinds in between. I think if you took the best team in the KHL and the best team in the AHL, the KHL team would win. I legitimately believe that. So he's been playing in what I believe is the second best league in the world for 5 years. And he's not just been playing there, he has been dominating it. He's been the best defenseman in the KHL, far and away. And the only time that he had reduced minutes was when they brought Tony DeAngelo in there for a little while over in SKA, and he wasn't on the power play. But then the moment Nikishin, I got to get used to pronouncing his name correctly. The moment Nikishin started getting more minutes, he started producing again. Now, people may say, and they do have a valid point about this, people may say, well, he doesn't know the system yet. He hasn't played it so much as a regular season game with the team. I was hoping he would make it for Montreal or Ottawa or both and actually give the coaching staff something to think about, like play well enough to make them think about, okay, we might not have a choice but to put this kid in the lineup just based on God-given talent alone, because he can probably adapt pretty quickly to what he needs to. Now, SKA versus Carolina style, there do seem to be some differences there, but that's to be expected. No two teams are identical. Even as closely matched in the way that they play as, say, Carolina and Dallas are, you can still pick out a ton of differences. But I think Nikishin is a good enough player. I think he's elite. I'm not going to say generational because that word is overused. Nikishin can more than likely come in and adapt very quickly if he's put in a position to do so. Now, in addition to that, who comes out? Well, I'm going to tell you who's not coming out regardless of, or who I wouldn't take out anyway, regardless of the propaganda against him all perpetrated by one person, maybe two. I've seen two say this. Chatfield's not coming out. If anything, Chatfield is on the short list to be his partner. Walker should not come out. Gostisbehere should not come out. Slavin sure as hell ain't coming out. Forgive me, Lord, for using the name Slavin and the word hell in the same sentence. That leaves you two options, either Burns or Orlov. Now, when we go into the player grades, I'll illustrate my point about this a little bit more. If you pull Orlov out, you plug and play, you drop Nikishin in right where Orlov was and let him be with the second best shutdown defenseman on the team, who also happens to be right-handed, so you wouldn't have to mix up the pairs. That would be the first option. Now, what I think the better option is, I think you should pull Brent Burns out of the lineup. Now, that is nothing personal against Burnsy. I don't want anybody thinking I'm a Burnsy hater or anything like that, because I'm not. I really like the guy. I was happy when we got him. But at the end of the day, he has regressed from being the guy who set the franchise record for points by a defenseman in a single season to where he's at now. If the production is gone, you're kind of wasting Slavin at that point, because Slavin works best with someone who does quick zone exits, gets the puck up ice quickly, generates quick neutral zone transition, and ultimately what leads to them getting points later. Slavin being wasted on what's being utilized essentially as a shutdown pair at this point, which is he and Burns, you're kind of mishandling Jacob Slavin's minutes along with giving Burns a few too many at that point. The Ironman streak is not relevant in the playoffs. Those games do not count towards his Ironman streak. And if this guy has, it's like if Nikishin is what we think he is, or even 3/4 of what we think he is, he's played his offside before. He did it a decent amount in Spartak Moscow. He did it some in SKA, and he did it pretty much the entire time he was on the Russian Olympic team in Beijing. So it's something he wouldn't be a stranger to. Additionally, you may remember a little bit last season that Brady Shea was on the left of Dmitry Orlov, and Orlov played really well on the right side, even though he's a left-handed shot. I think that a lot of defensemen that come from Europe, Russia in particular, they grow up playing predominantly on their offside for the sake of generating more offense. Gives you better looks when you're passing in a lot of occasions. It gives you better, makes it easier for you to cut to the middle of the ice and shoot when you're on your offside. Easier to generate offense walking across the blue line. There's a multitude of reasons why you could argue why somebody not only should play their offside, but would be better at it. And I think Nikishin is an adaptable enough player to do that. The biggest problem, I don't want to call it a problem, but the biggest drawback with Burns is he's slowed down a lot, and he's not really keeping up like he used to, and that's hurting us. I know that a lot of people want to talk about how they think that Rod's like playing favorites. I don't think it's a playing favorites thing. It would be a calculated risk to take Burns out of the lineup and put Nikishin in. I'm not going to pretend that it wouldn't be. But we're talking about a player that this isn't like someone advocating to take Burns out and put Morrow in, which would be less of a legitimate argument in my opinion. But Nikishin, on the other hand, if you put him with Slavin, turn him loose a little bit, let him do his thing, he could generate a lot of possession, he could generate a lot of offense, and we all know how well he can shoot. We know how aggressive he is when he pinches. He's got the frame, he's got the physicality, he's stable on his feet. I think he would adapt to it pretty quick. And if worse comes to worse, if he absolutely shits the bed in game one, you pull him out, you put Burns back in, or put Orlov back in, or whoever you subtract from the lineup. But I personally believe that Nikishin would be better served to be in the lineup sooner rather than later. Now, you can make the argument, get ahead in the series first and then put him in. I would just go ahead and put him in now. Like I said, if worse comes to worse, you can yank him. Don't go 11-7, 11-7. Nobody likes 11-7. I don't think there's a single hockey player on earth that says, oh boy, we're going 11-7. Nobody fucking likes that. It throws the lines all out of whack. For the forwards and the defense both, every 4 shifts you're going over the boards with different guys. If you're on the defense, you're going over every 3 shifts with different guys. So that's not better. That's just my personal thought on it. I will get to the next topic, which also ties into the playoffs here in a moment. I will get to some more of the comments first, and then I'm going to start inviting my buddies in so we can get going. Dylan says, seeing Rod smiling, looking up at Nikishin is a very short video. It made it so real. Long way to smiley over. Apparently the same size as Jordan Stahl. Yeah, he's a big boy. Mark Beats, what's up, buddy? K is the way more skilled. I think so too. If I had to wager, I would say the K is better than the AHL. Now, a lot of Chicago Wolves fans and hack reporters will argue with me on that, but I don't care what they think because they're not that smart. Dylan Bollinger says, I know we are excited, but he's going to be a rookie. Let's not overreact. When he does and will make some mistakes, but he won't make them as much as some others. That's a great way to put it. So Nikishin is a rookie, but he's not a rookie in the traditional sense. He's been playing for 5 years in the second best league in the world and dominating it. Like it's not even like he's a middle of the. It's not even like he's just a regular high-end KHL player drawn in. Now there is a little bit greater risk putting a defenseman in than a forward. A lot of people said, well, Demidov got put in for Montreal. Why can't we just do that? It's a lot less riskier putting a forward into the lineup cold than a defenseman, especially with the way that Carolina plays. But if there's going to be an exception made as far as putting a rookie in the lineup, having a guy play his offside and having him adjust to a new minutes with Slay. And another thing about that is he doesn't have to play any special team situations. You don't have to put him on the power play yet. You don't have to put him on the penalty kill yet. You definitely shouldn't put him on the penalty kill yet because you can send Slavin and Walker out there together to kill penalties. So that's one other thing to consider with that. He can just have all of his minutes be 5-on-5 for starters, and then he can integrate further and do things that way. Dylan also says KHL is the second best hockey league in the world behind the NHL. As far as I'm concerned, it is. A lot of people say the A is better. I don't buy that. It's the second best league in North America, without a doubt, but there's also people who pretend the AHL's job isn't to develop NHL prospects, and that's what it's for. It's even on their damn website. So Dylan also says Nikishin said in an interview he watched a bunch of Canes games so he can play that style this year in preparation for when he finally gets here. Yeah, and that's good on his part to do his homework and study that type of stuff and everything, but we also do have to consider video and stuff like that. It only goes so far. Video and stuff like that only goes so far. Like you actually have to get in there and do it because frame of reference is, a big deal. So watching it and actually executing are two completely different things. But I have the utmost faith and confidence that he would be capable of doing that and be doing it very quickly. I really do. I think it's lower risk to put him in the lineup than what some people are saying. Now, are you inherently taking more of a risk by putting him in the lineup and taking out somebody who's been playing? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say that you're not. But the payoff, if it works out, is ridiculous. This is something I will advocate far more than even what I was saying about trying Natchez at center. And he went to Colorado and that experiment lasted a period. So I was wrong about that. But this is completely different. TY2X says Nikishin watches the games. Yes, that's a big help right there. Dylan also says, love Burns. He's a legend. Unfortunately, age has caught up with him. Love to keep him just not on the ice, behind the scenes would be great fun. And honestly, if Burnsy did want to keep playing, I wouldn't mind him being like the seventh defenseman. I really wouldn't. But as far as him being a night in, night out top pair guy, that's got to stop. Maybe he'll turn back the clock during the playoffs here. And if anybody can do it, it's him. And this is not me criticizing Brent Burns. One, making it to the NHL is hard. Two, staying in the NHL for as long as he has is hard. And still being as athletic as he is after 40 is pretty fucking hard. Burnsy, just Father Time finally caught up with him despite his best efforts to stop it because nobody can say that the guy doesn't take care of himself. He eats right, he works out, and he's a great example for the younger guys. Time just caught up with him. This is not anything he did wrong. It's just the fact of the matter. Mark Beats says, by the way, at the morning take, it's pronounced Ska, not the letters SK. I've been to Russia and watched the team. I'm going to have to break that habit. I've been trying to break that habit for a long time, and I'm still trying to get into the habit of pronouncing it Nikishin, not Nikishin. The reason why I was pronouncing it Nikishin before, when I would watch the footage, I would say, I got to send links here in a second. When I would watch the footage, I would hear them pronounce it Nikishin. But I was trying to account for the fact that, like, for example, Alexander Semin, his name is pronounced different and spelled different in Russian than it is the Americanized pronunciation and spelling of it. I didn't know if that was a factor with Nikishin. Now I know that it is definitively, so I'm going to do my best to break the habit of the old way I was pronouncing it and pronounce it the correct way going forward. And yeah, the ska thing, I knew that, but I'm just also kind of like, I think about that genre of music that, like, what's her name?
the chick from No Doubt, Gwen Stefani, and them weirdos that they did. That's what I think of every time that I hear that. So I'm gonna have to get into that habit. Kobe McLam, do you think there's a legitimate chance he draws in? Yes. Yes, I absolutely believe that. All right, guys, I got to send some invites here real quick. Give me 1 second. All right, let me get this sent. All right, so we got the link set there. So let me do the last of these comments here, and then I'm going to cover one more thing while my buddies are on the way in here. Dylan Bollinger says Slavin 6'3", Nikishin 6'4", big top D-line. Yeah, that's another thing about it is like this team has a little bit of a shortage of physicality at times. I'm actually really going to want to hear what Griff has to say about this. Let me get him on the stage. And no, I don't like that. I like this one. There we go. All right.
What's up?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Oh, I still got this stupid background on.
Leave Stormy alone. He ain't bothering nobody. He's keeping us company until the rest of everybody gets in here. So I just made my case as to why I think Alexander Nikishin should be in the lineup. I don't think he will be. And I would like to know what you think, because I know you and I probably differ on this a little bit.
I gotta be very careful.
Dude, you're not gonna
about this. No, I know, but like every time you talk about this or you make a controversial statement, the masses come out of the woodwork.
Oh, it's the Hatfield and McCoys on the internet every time.
I'm telling you, you got to be careful what you say on Kane's X, because I mean, people just come out of nowhere and they're like, "You're so dumb, you don't know what you're talking about," and then they tell you why, and of course they give their opinion. But anyway, that's never stopped me. So, I really, really, really want him to play. Like I really do. I want to see it. I want to see what he has, and I'm ready for it to be now. But I don't think, if everybody's healthy, I don't think he should. A couple reasons. One, I'm terrified of him getting in there and getting exposed right off the bat in the playoffs, and then spending the whole off season wondering if he made the right decision, and wondering that if he can play at this level. He can. We know he can, but if any self-doubt creeps in, then it worries me. That's reason one. Reason two is, and I know it's professional sports and you're not really, supposed to, it's about the team, it's about the win. But having said that, those 6 guys that make up our blue line have been here from the beginning. They've played in these games. They've battled injury. They've basically gone to war with their team. And it's, to me, a disservice to them to make them sit out the playoffs just because you've got this hot new prospect. But let's face it, he's unproven in the NHL. He's never even played a game. Now, if we would have got him a week ago and he would have played, a game or two, and he came in and absolutely lit it up, maybe I'm singing a different tune. But I just don't think that, these guys that signed here, that play here, that have been here game in, game out, deserve to be sat down, no matter what your personal opinion is of them. I just don't think, I think you have to ride what you got and, go down with the ship. I don't think one player is going to make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things in this situation.
Mhm.
Now, having said that, I really want to see what he has. I would love to see him come in and pull a Kale McCarr, right off the bat and totally just flip the course of the postseason and ride off and, win a cup. And next thing you know, I mean, I don't know if that would happen or not, but I think our answer is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, because there's no way we're going to get through the whole playoffs healthy. That's
No.
not going to happen. It never does. Look at last year.
Especially on defense.
Yeah, because you
I
only
mean,
got so many of them.
I hope we do. But game 1, game 2, I think he needs to sit in the press box and watch the game, watch this team play. Maybe put somebody up there with him that can kind of explain different situational whatever. Somebody that can kind of point to what is happening, just so maybe he can start getting, a grasp of the system. And it's just like watching film, but watching it in live action. So maybe give him a game, game 1, put him up there, let him watch. Same thing maybe for game 2. And then, if you go into game 3 and everybody's healthy, then you've got a decision to make. Or, maybe if you get up 3 games in the series, let him play game 4. And you can rotate out players, for health reasons, just to keep everybody fresh. I don't know. That's what I think, but I don't think you should just throw him in game 1, sit somebody out. That's going to just not a good recipe in my opinion.
Yeah, it's probably not. And I mean, I also made my case to put him in game 1, but I understand the rationale of not putting him in either. It's not like the situation of where we traded for Shane Gostisbehere and Calvin DeHaan came out. This is not that. So it's like I'm personally in favor of putting him in, but I understand the rationale of not putting him in. Even up until the last 10 minutes before I started the stream, I was thinking about what I was going to say about it. I've been thinking about it that much.
It's hard, man.
Yeah, that I do not envy the position. It's a good problem to have, as they say, but I don't envy the position the coaching staff is in with this. Because if we're going a million miles an hour about it, I can only imagine what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I see this comment over here in Crispy Crawfish, the one he says the way I see it.
This one.
I kind of agree with this, although he can't go to the AHL playoffs.
No, he can't. He wasn't on the roster at the trade deadline.
But everything about, before that, I kind of agree with. Bring him in, let him see a playoff run, be in the locker room, be a part of it. If he, if he plays, he plays. If he has to play, then great. But, well, whichever way you look at it, great. But I mean, we weren't expecting him here. This KHL all of a sudden releasing players to come over here early is really unprecedented.
I think I know part of the reason that's happening is because they want to be able to go back to the Olympics and the World Championships and all that stuff, and they're doing their best to not piss the double IHF off any further.
Maybe so.
I think that's what it is.
And I believe that, there was that talk of the Trump-Putin phone call a couple weeks ago where they discussed, international competition again.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the driving force behind it too, to kind of ease tension, at least in the hockey world anyway.
That could be something. I'm waiting to see. Sam and Sam should be joining us here shortly.
But I don't know. I think it's all going to take care of itself. But I think game 1, if you've got your guys that have been here all along healthy, I think they got to play, man. I just do. Are you really going to sit Dmitry Orlov to put in to give Nikishin a shot?
He wasn't who I was going to sit, but I mean,
I know you're probably going to sit Burns.
Yeah, which trust me, that's a hard decision because I like him, but it's just he's not the same guy we traded for initially, man, and I hate that because I really like Burnsy. I was so excited when we got him.
Yeah.
Samuel,
Wallace.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
Doing well. You guys doing well?
Oh, yeah. So I'm glad you showed up at just the right time. Griff and I just got done expressing our separate opinions in regards to if Alexander Nikishin should play game 1. I want to know what you think.
As much as I love Nikishin, he is still labeled a rookie, no matter how good he is. And I think just because of that, I think barring injury on the blue line, I think the defense remains intact. I love Nikishin, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, you and Griff are on the same page with that. Whereas me, I was ready to throw him to the wolves, not the ones in Chicago either. Like, which he can't go there anyway. But that's nothing personal against any of the guys on the blue line. I like all of them. So especially Slavin and Ghost and Walker, those are my favorites back there. But we'll do some more of the comments here. We'll give Sam Driscoll a couple more minutes to get in, and plus I was thinking we could do a little bit of round 1 talk. In the meantime,
say hi to Stormy.
Hey, Stormy.
Yeah, that's going to be mandatory on the show from now on. Whenever Stormy is in attendance, you have to say hi to him, and that's the password from now on. All right, let's see what else we got here. B says, I feel like Chatfield has been really aggressive in the ozone lately, almost desperation levels. I feel like Chatty's trying to show two-way skills. I agree, and when we get to his card with the stats on it for the grade, I have really, really noticed that it seems like he's trying to produce a little bit more offense than what he was before. Aaliyah Yasmin says, I really can't believe he's finally here. I'm so excited. Yeah, we're all excited. Dylan says, I'm even excited to see pictures and videos from a practice tomorrow. Yeah, that will be interesting to see because I don't see any reason why he wouldn't practice. So
yeah, he'll practice.
Yeah, he will.
Crispy Crawfish says, though, there's a logjam down there, too, in regards to the Chicago Wolves. Yeah, even if he could play there, it's like, trust me, if he were to show up for the Chicago Wolves, they would most certainly bump somebody out of the lineup to get him in. At that level, it's way easier to make that decision. Av Clark says, maybe Rod will rotate him in Ghost Orlov spot so they can stay fresh and we have fresh bodies. I feel like if he was going to go to the AHL, he wouldn't be in Carolina right now. That's also true. If he were eligible to go to the AHL, they probably would have already assigned him. But at the same time, it's kind of like,
well, does Chicago have regular season games left? I think they do.
They do, but they can't assign Nikishin to the roster there anyway, since he wasn't signed prior to the trade deadline and he wasn't on an AHL roster at that point. I don't think. I'm pretty sure they can't.
I think that's only for the playoffs.
If that's the case, then
if Chicago has regular season games, he can go play.
I'd rather him play than not do anything.
But given the start of the playoffs, they may just keep him here just to be around the group, one, and to be, an extra in the event that you need him. So, maybe that was because Eric Tulsky talked about sending him to Chicago to play a couple games.
Okay, if that's the case, then it can be done. Maybe that's for guys that are already like under contract and everything. I think they have
to be on the roster at the trade deadline to play in the AHL playoffs. I don't think you can. They want to try to stop these teams from taking NHL players and dumping them down in the AHL to make a run at the playoffs if, say, the NHL club doesn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, or if they get bounced early.
Yeah.
TY2X says he's a prospect. He's supposed to be eligible. Yeah, I'd have to look that rule up because I actually don't know it off the top of my head, but I believe what y'all are saying about it. So, alrighty. So, in the meantime, while we're still waiting on Sam Driscoll, I don't think AB is going to make it. Actually, it sounds like he's still helping his girlfriend move. So, now, here's the speaking of, there we go. All right, now we got everybody in here. All righty. Samuel Taylor Driscoll, as quickly as possible. I have made my case. Griff has made his case. Your roommate/friend has made his case. Okay. It is currently 2-1 in favor of no, of putting Alexander Nikishin in game 1. I want to know what you think.
Do I get to know who's voted who first?
No.
Take a guess.
No.
Well, I'm guessing, Brandon, you said you want him in game 1, and Sam and Griff have said no.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
You know us well.
If you had asked me 3 weeks ago, And we were texting a little bit about this not too long ago. I think if you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I'd say absolutely he starts game one, because I'm not playing Orlov, because Orlov was a liability in every zone. He couldn't get a shot off. If he was shooting the puck, it was in someone's skates going the other way, turning the puck over left and right. But I think Orlov has played really well the last 2-3 weeks, and I think Burns has played really well the last 2-3 weeks, and those are the only two that I would look at and say, oh, maybe no, unless maybe you're looking at Walker, and even then I'm a little bit, I'm like, no, I mean, he's been fine, you don't notice anything bad about Walker.
I like his bite too.
Yeah, he gets under their skin, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, unless someone's hurt, then I think as of now, I keep it as is. But you have him as an option if Orlov or Burns or Walker or Gostisbehere or really anybody other than Chatfield and Slavin start to falter seriously, he's an option. But my concern isn't defense. So
yeah, and we all kind of had the general consensus that this might work itself out, because there's no way we're going all the way through the playoffs with being completely healthy the entire time.
But I stand by my statement that if you get up 3-0 or 3-1, or something like that, maybe you rotate a guy out just for rest and give him a game. I mean, and if he goes in and he's a dumpster fire because he's never played in the system, then okay, at least it's not catastrophic.
No, that's a very good point about that too.
Or maybe he goes in and scores freaking 2 power play goals or something crazy, and then now you know what you have. Like, okay,
pulls an Austin Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just.
Yeah, AB is definitely not making it. Look at your phones. Yeah, he's not making it.
Staged.
Yeah, that fake news.
That's staged.
Staged.
All right, so we'll do one more thing real quick, then we'll get to the player grades. So here's one thing that I want to say about round one. And this is me also making sure I don't sound like a hypocrite, because y'all know I'm like a top 5 Jack Hughes hater in the world. I don't think the Devils are going to go away as easily as a lot of people think that they are. I don't expect Carolina to win the series in 5 games. I think it will take 6. I know Adam Gold has said he thinks it will take 7. Valid reasoning on his part why he thinks that. I think it will take 6. And I think it's going to be a little bit harder than people think it's going to be. I still think Carolina will win, but a lot of people think we're just going to walk in there and it's going to be a cakewalk. I don't believe that personally. I want to know what you guys think.
Well, one, I think Adam Gold hedges his picks a little bit. I mean, I don't think he's going to go onto his show and be like, "Oh, Carolina's going to sweep the Devils." I mean, that's just not. I mean,
he tries to be fair.
Yeah, he wants to be, and that's fine. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying I don't. He likes to. He'll say 7, but then if they sweep him, he'll be like, "Well, they surprised me." So
so that way he can't be disappointed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just like the biggest point I want to make about it is a lot of people are basically saying no Jack Hughes, no problem. And I think that's bullshit personally, because I don't think Jack Hughes is even their best player, because I think Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt are both better than him. And they're both still there.
I believe if Carolina, because Sheldon Keefe said today that Jonas Siegenthaler, that if he played in the series, it would be a surprise. So that's another, so he's out. Not that he's a good player, but, but I believe that if Carolina can control the neutral zone and limit the Devils' transition, quick transition, I believe it's a quick series. They're not going to be able to do that, obviously, the whole series. I do think that, either Markstrom steals a game or, the Devils go on a scoring flurry or something. I don't think it's a sweep. I mean, it could be, but I think it's 5. But I really believe that, we always see Carolina defensively lock in, especially in the first round, and then it kind of tapers off as, you know, I mean, of course, we've played some really tough teams in the last few years in the second round, the Rangers. But, you know, I think, you know, Carolina usually locks in defensively in the playoffs in the first round, and I believe that they'll dominate defensively. You know, I just think it's quick. I think it's 5. That's the key, though, is the neutral zone and limiting their transition.
Sam, what we're doing me?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of. I've never been very high on New Jersey. I don't agree with you, Brandon. I think Jack Hughes is their best player. I think he's a heck of a hockey player. Dude knows how to put the puck in the net. He knows how to put the puck in the net better than anybody we have. And I've seen it very close for a very long time, and it makes me bad every time we play Jack Hughes. But I think it matters that their blue line is so walkable, you know, and I think that matters. Dougie Hamilton's their best defenseman, and that dude can get walked. He's also afraid to get hit. So, you know Dougie's game. So, and Jacob Markstrom, this is his first year with New Jersey, right?
Yes.
Is my memory. Where was this Jacob? I mean, Jacob Markstrom wasn't great in Calgary last year. So I'm just saying, you know, is Jacob Markstrom going to fold? I mean, just because he's had a good year doesn't mean he's not going to revert. He wasn't overly successful in the playoffs, I think, in his career. So my belief overall in New Jersey is they're not much different than they are when we played them 2 years ago. And they're without Jack Hughes. So I think that matters. Jonas Siegenthaler out. I think that matters. Is Brett Pesce healthy? I think that matters. I cannot believe he's played this full season. He was hurt for some of it, but I can't believe we're going into the playoffs and Brett Pesce's 100%. I don't think he was ever 100% on any of the playoff series that we've had. No way that's true. Brett Pesce's already not the best skater. So I don't see this New Jersey team any different or any better than they were 2 years ago. And I think we have better play. Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, I think, are good hockey players. I think I take Aho over Hischier.
Yeah.
And I would take Seth Jarvis over Jesper Bratt.
Yeah, especially that one.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
it's
not
just,
even
you know,
close.
but I'm looking at like our top guys and their top guys who are going to top guys are better. I mean, that are going to be playing. And then, so yeah, I agree with Griff. I think it's 4 or 5 games. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked if we swept them. I think 5 is the more likely outcome.
Brett Pesce is like that iPhone that you've had for a long time that eventually it only charges to like 70%. And like that's the highest you can get out of the battery.
Yeah. Now I love Brett Pesce, and I'm not
So
trashing Brett Pesce.
No, I agree.
It's just a fact. That's why we didn't give him the contract. It wasn't
Right.
the money; it was the term. We would have given him the money. We didn't want to give him the term.
If he was pre-separated shoulder Brett Pesce, he's still here.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I don't think you can't get to 100% with him. He's perma diluted.
Yeah, because like he used to play super, super physical, and then one day he couldn't do that anymore. So it's like,
I'm telling you now, Jackson Blake. I promise you, he walks Pesce and Hamilton at least once apiece, and I think that's a minimal. So no, I don't believe in it. If they had Jack Hughes and Siegenthaler and they were full strength and healthy, I might be a little concerned because I think Jack Hughes is better than anybody that we have. Siegenthaler just bolsters their, so he's needed. And then really at the end of the day, it's how does Markstrom play? And I think that's a wild card because we don't know. He hasn't played in the playoffs for a little while. And I think we beat him than I think people might give us credit for.
yeah, but I mean, Jack Hughes also gets knocked over by light breezes, as we saw in the Four Nations face-off. People were just skating by him too fast, and he was falling over.
Well, just remember, we have Dmitry Orlov and Brent Burns, both of whom can get walked. And yes, and Jack Hughes is fast, and I think not having Jack Hughes there to abuse Brent Burns, because we've seen it happens a lot. Burns can get turned around, and that if Burns has to start to turn, they're gone. Orlov the same, and I think not having Jack Hughes, who's the best skater in my mind on that Devils team, I think that's a huge loss because I think in some ways our defense can get abused as well. I think we have some fail safes on those lines where Chatfield can cover for Orlov and Slavin can cover for Burns, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And Jack Hughes is a guy who's just so skilled. I mean, I like Quinn Hughes a lot more than Jack, but Jack Hughes is just he's an excellent player. I've watched him a lot since he came into the league. Obviously, he's in our division, but I think that's a huge loss. He's a 100-point guy or pretty close to it, and that's out of your lineup and for the playoffs, at least for the first round. And I think he's out for the entirety of the playoffs. I don't think it's a coaching problem with New Jersey. Sheldon Keefe's fine. He got them to the playoffs. It's not going to be really a coaching duel. I think it's just a matter of what the arsenal is, and Carolina's arsenal, I think, is better.
So I think Carolina obviously wins in 6 games, but I think part of it, I actually think New Jersey has gotten better. I would say in the goaltending department. I know Markstrom probably doesn't have the experience, but can you tell me that he is worse than Akira Schmid when we played him in the playoffs? Because he was pretty atrocious.
No, he's not. He's better than Schmid.
Yeah. And Vanacek, I would argue.
I just happen to have this right now because from where I'm working on the playoff preview, this is one of the things in there. So do with that what you will.
Yeah, so I do think New Jersey's gotten better with the goaltending department, and I think you could say mainly on the defensive side. But also, I mean, it kind of depends on the lineup for Carolina. Like, I think if they put in, I know the debate is what's the lineup going to be with like Robinson or Rozovic. Seems like that. I think those are the two that is the debate of who's going to be in the lineup over the other. I think if we have like Robinson in the lineup, I think Carolina, just from looking at the team alone compared to New Jersey, I think they're bigger than New Jersey. So I think they have bigger size than New Jersey. And I think Carolina also has a little bit more tenacity too, because I mean, when you see Jordan Martinook in the playoffs, he elevates his game. And I really love that about Martinook. So I think there's more tenacity that Carolina has than New Jersey. And I mean, New Jersey has Nason, I think, probably as the tenacity type of player. But I think
we got
have
Carrier.
a lot more. We have Carrier too. Stankoven, I think, can be a pest as well. So
Stankoven is like Brad Marchand reincarnated.
As a
Minus all,
that's a
minus all the chirping and after the whistle stuff. Like the way that he plays, his skating and everything he reminds, it's like part of the reason I think they call Brad Marchand the rat is when he skates, he looks like a little rat scurrying quickly around the ice. Stankoven, Jarvis and Blake to a lesser extent, but Stankoven reminds me of that so much.
Yeah, I know. And I think he has like a sixth sense because I think he's one of the smartest players on
I
the
agree.
ice. So, but I think regardless, it's going to be a fun series. New Jersey gotten a little bit better, but I think Carolina still is the better team. And honestly, I could see it come down to goaltending if we lose, because I think if we lose, then I think, it's going to be probably because Anderson or Kochetkov cannot get out of that funk that they've been in for past couple weeks.
All righty. If anybody has anything else, now's the time before we move on to the player grades.
I had one other thing I wanted to add just about Nikishin, just because I don't know what you've said about Nikishin.
I hate him. I think he sucks.
Well, okay.
I hate him more.
I want to kind of amend what I said about him playing. I don't think he plays in the first round because I don't think New Jersey has anybody where that requires a need. I think you could see it in the second round when we play in Washington. I think that matters because I think it's probably going to be Washington. I don't want it to be. And in my brackets that I've made, I refuse to pick Washington beating Montreal. But I think it's probably going to be Washington if I'm being realistic. And I think you put Nikishin in if you start to get bullied, because we don't have anybody else that's really meant. We have people who will. We don't have anybody who's built to. And Nikishin can go in there and show Tom Wilson what for. So I think if you get to a point where you're getting bullied by Washington, I think you could go 11-7 in game 2 in Washington.
I can't.
I hate 11-7, and I don't think the players like it either.
Look, that's why I think he's going to get a game in the first round. I think that
See-
I think I'm calling it now. We're going to go up 3-0 in the series, and he's going to play game 4.
I think you have to try. I mean, you probably need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
because that Washington series is going to be looming because it's most likely what happens. They have Tom Wilson, Alex Ovechkin. That team is big and they are nasty and they are dirty. And we only have one guy that is under contract who can play that way and is willing to play that way, and it's Nikishin. And I don't like 11-7 either. I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm saying if you don't want to take out a defenseman, maybe you take out a forward and you throw Nikishin out there as a, you want to try something? Good luck. He's bigger than you, he's stronger than you, and he knows how to take care of you. So, I mean, I think he's bigger than Wilson, so I'd like to see him go up against Tom Wilson. I'm just saying, like, if they start to bully us, I see no reason why you don't throw Nikishin out there as a, hey, we have a guy too, and he's here to make sure you know that you're not going to bully us anymore. You're
Well,
not
I
going
can
to
tell
bully
you right now,
Jarvis
Tom-
and so on.
Tom Wilson won't fight him because I've watched in person. I've watched this guy turn down Michael Furland and Joel Edmondson both. He will definitely not fight Nikishin.
He's too
Tom
big. He
Wilson
likes
is-
to pick on little guys.
He will not fight someone in the same weight class as him. So he went toe-to-toe with Ryan Reeves a couple of times, who won those.
Oh, did you see? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I had.
Did you see that Toronto recalled Ryan Reeves today?
Oh, yeah,
Yep,
they
I
want
did.
someone to deal with Brady Kachuk and all that.
Makes sense.
Alrighty. So, player grades. Just quick disclaimer here. I do not own, nor did I compile or create any of these statistics. These are the websites that I got them from. And so, to you out there in the audience, the way that this is going to work, there's going to be some players that we have really, really detailed grades on. But for the first, let me remove this for just a second. For the first slide, we have simple grades, and this is for guys who haven't been here all season or didn't play a bunch. In this case, that will be Taylor Hall, Logan Stankoven, Mark Jankowski, Scott Moore, William Carrier, and Tyson Jost. When we get to the detailed grades, I'm going to give everybody a chance to start putting what their personal grades are for a player. I'll let you know who the next one up is after this. They can put their grades in the chat, and then we will move on to that slide and start talking about our grades for each individual player. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so first off, Taylor Hall. This guy got unanimous A's across the board from all of us. I think he has been an excellent fit, and I hope that he gets a good $3.5–4 million 3-year deal from the Canes going forward. I think this would be a great guy to keep. He's still plenty fast, very good player, very utilitarian. I think he's brought out the best in Jesperi Kotkaniemi when he's been with him. His experience has been really, really invaluable to this team. I think that he would be impactful in this playoffs and other playoffs going forward. What do you guys think?
I love Taylor Hall. I think he's was the obviously the best piece that we got at the Mikko Rantanen deal because he played better than Mikko Rantanen when they were both here together. I'm actually a big advocate for extending Taylor Hall till he's for the rest of his career. I just think he fits here so well. So I think he's 34, 35, right?
33.
33. I've said I give him a 4 to 5 year deal. I lock him up. I don't know why you don't. I think if you give him the longer term, you can get the cap hit down. So, I mean, I think is fair. I think everyone got it right. Give him a 4 or 5 year deal at, I bet you can get him at $3 million if you do 4, if you do the 4 or 5, you can knock that cap hit down. And then $3 billion is going to be pennies on the dollar in 3 years of a cap. So I think you get him at a bargain. I think he wants to play here. I think he wants to be here. That's why everyone keeps reporting that there's a contract in the works. And you know what? We have 2 days before the playoffs. Let's get the contract done before game 1.
Alrighty.
Concur.
Yeah, I like Taylor Hall. Like what Sam said, I give him an A. Been very good, and honestly, I extend him too. Obviously because he's good, but I think another factor too is he's a veteran in this league, and with so many young players that we have, we kind of need that veteran presence on the team. I'm not saying Jordan Stahl and Martinook aren't. It's just we need someone, especially I would say in that top 6, and he can definitely play in that top 6. That's a veteran, so I extend him as well.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Nothing
Anything
to
else
add.
on Taylor? Alrighty. All right. So we're going on to Logan Stankoven. He got pretty good grades across the board. AB gave him a B plus, Griff gave him a B, Sam gave him a B plus, Sam Driscoll gave him a B plus, Sam Wallace gave him an A plus, and I gave him an A. So biggest thing that I'm happy about with Stankoven, this guy, his puck pursuit is really good. He's very tenacious, really useful in the offensive zone and keeping plays alive down there. Pretty good vision. He'll go to the dirty areas, work really hard, plays above his size.
I agree. I think worst case scenario, he turns into a Nino Niederreiter kind of player, an offensive guy playing on the stall line. But yeah, I think he's been good.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I just went B. I didn't want to shoot him too high because I think, he is a rookie. He's gonna grow. He's gonna progress. So I didn't really want to. I don't know. I didn't want to start too high because I think there's more there that he can give. So I love him though. I love this dude. Like I remember that night when when it was the night before the trade deadline and it was like midnight and all of a sudden Friedman dropped a bomb about Dallas, and then I started seeing rumors about Stanko and I was like, man, I don't know. Like I need more out of this deal than just Logan Stankoven, right? But hindsight being 2020, he's been. He fits this team. People were saying at the trade like he was made, like his game is made to be a Carolina Hurricane, and they were right. Like he can play anywhere in the lineup. He can play on the third line. He can shut down. He can forecheck. He can, you can be on your power play. 5'8" and he's a net front presence. He's gotten 2 or 3 goals, right there on, net front. So I love everything about him.
Oh yeah, Stankoven is actually becoming one of my favorite players, just because I think, like what I said earlier, I think he has like a sixth sense. He's very, very smart with the puck. That's what drew me to really liking this player. I have him at an A plus just because of that performance that he has, but also like when we got him, I started to read prospect profiles of this dude, and all of the prospect profiles of him was like, this guy can be a future top of the lineup player, and if we can get that from a guy like Stankoven, that's going to be amazing. The only downside is he's small, but other than that, I think this guy has amazing potential, and I think we're just going to get more and more from him every year.
Alrighty, everyone good on Logan there?
Yes.
Alrighty. Mark Jankowski got A's across the board except for an A minus from Griff. Either way, seems like everybody is happy with this guy. I know I am in particular. His skating is really impressive. His power skating in particular. He's really good at creating separation, but he's also really good at gapping up on people. His back checking is excellent. His 200-foot game is excellent. And I think that's where a lot of the offense he's been providing is coming from. I do not expect him to continue scoring at this pace. No, he is not a second-line center before anybody asks, but he's really damn good. And I think that it was a sneaky good pickup by our front office here with Mark Jankowski.
Yeah, he was kind of under the radar at the trade deadline. Like I knew who he was, but when I read, that we traded for him, I was kind of like, who? But then I was like, oh wait, the guy that played in Calgary for a while, and then I, started remembering all the 4-goal game, and then I was like, okay, he's just going to be a depth guy, and then he came in and basically cemented his position in the top, 12. So I think it was a great pickup. The guy is a great penalty killer. He's good in the face-off dot. What a get by the front office.
Yeah, you added some size to this team. They needed size and needed a little bit of grit. Carolina's not a big team per se, and I think you add a good big center. I think he in a lineup where I think you have KK and Jankowski battling for that third scoring line center role right now, because I think that's where they are. KK by default has to be second line center because you just don't have any other options. But I think you're talking next season, like who's your third scoring line center? And I think Jankowski's been making a better argument than KK. I've told Sam, we talked about this before, that Jankowski, who's had an unbelievable time in Carolina, you look at him and you're saying, okay, who's had the better, Jankowski's ceiling is what we're seeing, right? But I think Jankowski's floor is higher than KK's floor. But I think KK's ceiling is higher than Jankowski. So at the end of the day, the organization is going to have a conversation, right? Is it Mark Jankowski, where we know no matter what, this is what he can do, he'll be fine, it's not a big deal? Or do they gamble on the upside, right? That they still believe KK can do it. I think he can do it. When I watch him snipe like he did the other night, it's like, geez, like where is this 82 games out of the year, right? You don't see it, or 81 games out of the year. You see it like one game a year from him. And I think Jankowski is what's great about it. He's given the argument that he should be the de facto third scoring line center. And so far he's earned that spot. And we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I like Jankowski too. Again, the team needed size. He definitely brings that, along with the great defensive attributes that he has of being on the penalty kill. Again, I think he's a great breath of fresh air to this team. And he has one more year, I believe, on this contract. So I could definitely see him being in the lineup next season.
Dude always looks like he's stoned too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's just so relaxed. He's just kind of like, oh, it's just a game, bro.
He's always just got this look on his face like,
He does.
He does.
Alrighty, so Scott Morrow. AB gave him a C+, Griff gave him a D, Sam Driscoll gave him a B-, Sam W also gave him a B-, and I gave him a B-. So the B- on my part was kind of generous because Scott Morrow's not there to provide the stalwart defense. He's there to provide the puck possession and offense. I felt like he took steps in that. However, the defensive side of his game does need a lot of work, and I think what we've seen of him at the NHL level does provide evidence that maybe he's not ready yet. I think he's getting there, but maybe he needs to go back to the minors for a little bit. I don't think he's by any means ready to play top pair type of minutes with Jacob Slavin or anything like that personally. So I think that there's kind of a fork in the road in his development here, whether you send him back down or you have him play limited minutes at the NHL level going forward. Obviously not in the playoffs, but like next season. What do you guys think?
I mean, I just don't know what he did when he was here. I didn't see any. I didn't see defense that was worth a damn, and I really didn't see offense worth a damn. I don't know. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but I don't think the sample size that we've seen. I don't know. I'm not a believer at this moment.
So when it comes to Scott Morrow, my belief with him is I like his puck handling on the blue line. I think he does a really good job. I think the worst game he had was Montreal or Ottawa, where he turned the puck over, I think, at the blue line when he was dancing with it on a power play. I think in general, he's been very good at that. I think he's going to be a very good power play quarterback. But this is the question I think you need to ask yourself. What does this team, where does this team see them next year? And I believe Scott Morrow, if he's up here, he only has one partner he should play with, and it's Jacob Slavin. I don't see him fitting anywhere else. It needs to be with Jacob Slavin. I think, one, that'd be good for his development. But Sam and I talked about this too. Scott Morrow is a top prospect. I don't think there's any disagreement there that he's going to be playing in the NHL. Where that is, or where he could fit, and maybe he fits better on another team. So do you use Scott Morrow as part of a package to get a bigger piece of our puzzle that we need to make better? And if you do that, I think what makes the most sense, and Brandon, you'll like this, Burns isn't coming back. I signed Tony DeAngelo next year. and put him with Slavin because that's a cheap guy. He loves it here. He plays well with Rod. He's going to get you the points. He's never played better with anybody than he played with Jacob Slavin. He can skate. When he does make mistakes, that dude can skate to correct them. And you have Jacob Slavin as a fail-safe anyway. And then you get your power play quarterback. Our power play was better with Tony D'Angelo quarterbacking it than anybody else that we've had quarterbacking it. So if it's not Scott Morrow playing with Jacob Slavin, I think you have to ask your question. All right, is he your 7th defenseman this year? Is he going to play in Chicago? Or do you package him up to go get a big piece that can fill in instead of, if you don't sign Marner, you don't sign Bennett, do you go out and use Morrow as part of a package with one of those Dallas picks to go bring in a big name, a big piece to the puzzle? And I think that makes, and then you sign D'Angelo, and I think that scenario makes a lot of sense. So I don't disagree with Griff's grade or anyone else's grade. I think they're all fair. I think it depends on how you look at it. And then I think it matters next season what you view him as well.
I heard a comment that Rod made about, you remember, maybe it was like his first or second game. Rod was like, we got to work some of that out of his game. And when I heard, the offensive portion, do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
because that annoyed me.
Yeah, I remember him being, Rod's one of those guys that like he looks kind of stoic, but when he's really annoyed about something, you can tell.
Yeah.
And he had that look on his face when he made that. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
When I heard that, I thought to myself, I was like, well, Scotty's not playing here next year like we thought he was. But anyway, I agree. I would use it. I mean, we've got a lot. The prospect pipeline. You good?
Sorry, I unplugged my headset on accident.
But the prospect pool here has I feel like has a lot of defensemen that potentially in the next couple of years, 3 years, whatever, could jump up and and play. And I don't know about D'Angelo. I like.
I'm not
D'Angelo.
saying you sign Tony to like 5 years. I'm saying maybe you give him 2, give some of those other guys a chance.
Maybe but I think Alexander Nikishin is going to quarterback your power play, and then you still got Gostisbehere under contract for how many 2 more years after this, I believe. Yep. And so whether Gostisbehere is power play 1 or 2 or whatever that works out, we'll see. But I could see. You guys call me crazy, but I really believe that this team is going to re-sign Dmitry Orlov to a contract at a lower AAV for a couple reasons. 1, because he's been here, and 2, because I think he's good to have around for Nikishin. He's a defenseman. He's Russian. He's been here. He's been around the league. That is the perfect mentor. I mean, you're talking Svechnikov, Orlov, and Kochetkov. Out of those 3, who do you want mentoring your prized Russian defenseman?
I don't want Orlov. Dude's been a disaster for a good chunk of this. Absolutely no.
I'm saying as a human. Look, you want a forward who's 25 years old. Dmitry Orlov is 4. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's been in the league. He plays the same position. He's a left shot defenseman, just like Nikishin. He's been in the system. He's played for. I just think that guy is the perfect mentor for Alexander Nikishin. Not Svech, not Kochetkov. And I think that's the reason why they signed Dmitry Orlov. And I think, however the pairing shape up after that, I think that's going to be your 6 next year. And I think Burns leaves, but that's just my opinion.
Well, if they do bring Orlov back, and if he's playing on the same pairing as Nikishin, if they actually break the rule and let there be 2 left-handed guys on the same pair, then I'm not entirely opposed to that either, because you can put Ghost and Chatty back together. We already know that works. Like, literally, we know how well that works. It's been done before. And Scott Walker and Jacob Slavin, I would love to see that pair. I
would too.
Yeah, that would be, it would be like a light version of Faber and Slavin from the Four Nations face-off, if you ask me.
Or you leave your bottom two pairs the same and you put Nikishin on Slavin's right side. Let him play his offside up there.
I
Yeah,
just
that's an
don't know if
option, too.
Brendan Moore. I just don't know if Brendan Moore's willing to do that with the whole. I think he sounds pretty strict when it comes to right-handed and left-handed.
If he's going to make an
defensemen.
exception, it's going to be for Nikishin.
That's what I'm saying. I maybe you put Nikishin on Slavin's pair. That would, you know how scary that is.
It would be.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Brendan Moore's willing to do that.
We'll see. I can see it. I just think he'd be a great mentor.
Yeah, I mean, and our friend Katie Bartlett made a post talking about that, to not be surprised if Orlov were brought back for that purpose. Now, if they bring him back at a $7.75 million cap hit, then I will be mad.
No,
Yes,
no.
yes, I would.
You don't
That will be a
But they're
problem.
not going to do that.
If you
Okay,
bring
as-
Orlov back, that number has to be below 4. If it's
Oh,
anything
it
above,
has to be.
Yeah.
if it's anything above 4, I'm going to absolutely lose it. One, I think Orlov's a disaster and a joke anyway, and I don't think he should be here. And I can't. I cannot.
I think
do
he's
another
played
season of
better
Orlov.
A
recently.
disaster.
Yeah, sure, recently, but I don't like Orlov. No, I don't want Orlov here.
I'm going to clip this later. I'm going to use that to chirp people. You're a disaster and a joke. Sam Driscoll
look.
said stuff.
Look, he was obviously hurt when he was having his issues. He went out of the lineup right after that.
Well, he was doing
mean-
it for a long period of time. It wasn't just that. And then he came back and he did it for a little while. He's been better recently, and I've admitted that. But no, I don't want Orlov back
You know
next year.
about-
What? I would rather let Morrow figure it out with a younger
No.
guy, and then
Oh,
you get
man.
Nikishin.
That was,
No,
that was-
Orlov.
That was
I
fucking
don't want-
brutal.
I
You're
don't
a
wanna-
disaster and a joke.
I don't want to bring back any of the two defensemen who get walked. They're the only two who get walked.
No,
I don't want
man.
that. I'd rather let a young guy figure it out who gets walked than an old guy who's not going to figure it out. He's not
Scott
well-
Morrow doesn't get walked, right?
No, he gets walked, but let's let him figure it out. He's young. He's going to get better. Orlov's not going to change. He's past his prime, or he's on the
Morrow
other side
has
of
the
it.
potential to be better. Does he? I don't know. I think that's all of our questions.
No,
I'm still kind of.
I won't. I can't agree on this, but that's okay. Move on.
I'm siding with Griff, though, that I'm not entirely convinced Scott Morrow is going to be here next year, but we'll get to more of that later. William Carrier. I cannot think of anybody who doesn't like this guy. AB gave him a B. Griff gave him a B minus. Sam Driscoll gave him a B. Sam Wallace gave him an A. I gave him an A plus, and I was reluctant to give him an A plus, but I'm personally am looking at the games that he has played. He doesn't give you a ton of offense, but he turns games around when he goes in there and he lays a big hit on somebody. A lot of physicality, wears other teams down, forechecks really well. Perfect fit for the stall line, as Griff pointed out at the beginning of the season. Much better option there than Jackson Blake would have been. So I got to admit, you had me on that one. Because I was dead set on Jackson Blake being that guy, but Jackson Blake has exceeded what I think any of us thought he was going to be at this point.
Yes.
And we got a lot to talk about with him. But William Carrier, he is doing exactly what he was brought in to do when he can play. We knew that there was probably going to be some issues with injury. That's why he had so much term and such a low AAV. He's essentially a 13th forward who's in when he's healthy, is the way I look at it. So, but I've really been happy with him when he's been in the lineup.
I know what his injury was.
What was it?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know what you're gonna say.
I don't really know officially. I just have I have a feeling that it was a hernia.
That makes sense why he was out for the time frame he was then.
That's just my intuition.
Mm.
But
I mean,
go ahead, y'all.
No, I like Carrier. I think he's been very good. I've got nothing bad to say about him, but I also don't have anything where I'm like, I can't. I'm not able in my mind right now. And when I did these grades, able to pick things out that were noticeable. But I think that speaks volumes as well, where it's like, like Jesper Fast, right? I don't think of many moments other than when he scored the game-winning goal against the Devils. But, Jesper Fast does a lot of good things. You don't think of anything bad that Jesper Fast did, where I think Carrier does a lot. And I think you brought Carrier in as that Jesper Fast replacement, where he's the kind of guy that doesn't do anything wrong, but you don't always notice him on the ice. And I think that shows why he plays and fits in so well with the stall line, where he just ensures bad things don't happen. And I think that's where he thrives.
I think we're about to see like why we brought in William Carrier here in the playoffs. I think he's going to wind up. I think when we get out of the next, if we get out of the, say we go to the Eastern Conference Final, right? Say we win, in round 2 and we make it to the Eastern Conference Final. I think if we look back on that second round series, we're going to say, wow, William Carrier was really a difference. But I think that we're about to see, I think this is the time
That's what
of year
Foss
that he
did.
shines.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what Carrier did in Vegas too. He was a big part of that run. He didn't put the
Exactly.
numbers up, but he's the type of guy that goes out there and turns around games when they're not going well.
Absolutely.
It's like Tripp made a comparison to him during the first Canes broadcast of the season, the second home game, the one against the Devils. And he compared Carrier to Tuomo Ruutu. As you guys know, he's my favorite winger of all time. And I was like, yo, Tripp, pump the brakes, bro. Like, that's no. He was right. So very happy with that.
But yeah, I mean, I like Carrier too. I that's the reason why I put him as an A, because I mean, even though I love Stankoven on that line with Stahl Martinuk, I mean, I just think Carrier kind of completes that line a little bit more. He's been just very, very good. Love the tenacity. And I really can't wait to see what he does in the playoffs, considering the history and the fact that he's won a Stanley Cup with Vegas. So it's gonna be fun. And we're gonna need his grit too. I think that's gonna help a lot against a team like the Devils, who don't have a lot of grit.
All righty. Anything else on William Carrier?
Nope.
All righty. So Tyson Jost, very happy with him coming in here and playing a bigger role than what was initially expected. I think part of the reason we were comfortable with moving on from Jack Drury is because of how well Tyson Jost played and that he could fit into that fourth line center role. Of course, now we have Jankowski, and Jost is going to be one of the healthy extras when the playoffs come, so provided that everybody is healthy. But I think that he did his job well enough in that fourth line center role. So AB gave him a B minus, Griff gave him a B plus, Sam Driscoll gave him a C, Sam Wallace gave him a C, I gave him a C plus. So pretty close grade across the board there. What do you guys think?
I think he's been everything that you could ask him to be at, in his role, between the minors, between the national, and especially here recently. He's not afraid to mix it up. He's not afraid to go to the front of the net. He's not afraid to, throw his body around. I mean, he's been skating around for a week with a big old shiner that goes hard, man. He might not be the biggest producer point wise, but that's really not his role. And when you look at this team and you look at their depth, I mean, I think, as a 13th forward, which is probably what he's going to be in the playoffs. I mean, I can't think of a better 13th forward, given what I've seen him do on the ice.
I would say
I don't have anything negative to say about him. I think he's been fine. I don't have any strong feelings about him one way or the other. So, I mean, nothing to really add to what Griff said.
Yeah, I think with Jost, I mean, I think he's done well with the games he's been given. Do I think he's been like overwhelmingly exceeding my expectations? No. Do I think he's been playing bad? No. But I agree with what Matt said. If he's your 13th forward, I'm happy. I really am.
All righty. Anything else on Tyson Jost, anybody? All righty. All right, so the first player grade that we're coming up here that's going to be more detailed and everything.
Brandon, I want to add one thing about a guy you have on that list, because I'm comfortable sharing this now because of where I've changed my place of employment.
Oh, okay.
And Mikko Rantanen, I just want to confirm that I got from a source that the reason he did leave Raleigh, confirmed, was not because he didn't want to be here. His significant other refused to move to Raleigh.
What a fucking bitch. And I'm not talking about her. Like, if I'm getting a bag like that, I'm like, we're living where the fuck I say we're living. If someone says you live in the middle of Kansas but you make $14 million, so be it. We're in Kansas now. Build a basement in case of tornadoes.
Yeah, that was the kind of I assumed that was why.
Yeah, I kind of got
That doesn't
vibe
make
too.
things better. That does not make things better, though.
No, but it's also kind of like, I'm not going to say what I really want to say about it because I will get canceled from here to the moon. But yeah, that's bitch made behavior on his part.
I won't give details
Fuck
on
that.
how I know that it's true, but
You don't have to.
You
the
don't have to.
person I got it from is very reliable in this area. That person didn't tell me. I couldn't say, but I chose not to for a while. But you guys knew it, but I wanted to go ahead and say
Yeah, secret safe with me. I know who you got it from, but I'm not gonna say. Anyway, we will end this particular part of the show on a note of fuck Mikko Rantanen. And all right, so everybody, audience, the first player that we're going to be talking about with the detailed cards is going to be Sean Walker. If you would like to put your grades for Sean Walker in the chat right now, I will give you 30 seconds to do so, and then we will move on. And then we'll tell you who the next player is when we're done talking about Sean Walker. Alrighty. And here we go. AB, dude, come on. Fucking AB, bro.
Are we surprised?
I guess he accidentally packed the grade for Sean Walker up in the box where he's helping his girlfriend move.
Yeah.
He forgot.
That's stage 2.
Yeah, that's all staged. It's all fake. Alrighty, so we have Austin Holmes saying Sean Walker deserves a B. Dylan Bollinger says he's a B+. So the grades that we gave, AB said fuck Sean Walker. Griff says B. Sam Driscoll says B+. Sam Wallace says A, and I gave him an A+. In 82 games played, he averaged a 1650 time on ice. He has 5 goals, 11 assists, 16 points. Individual expected goals of 8.01. 90 shot blocks, plus minus of -7, expected goals of 53.99, and a shooting percentage of 3.45. I think that would improve if he were to be paired with Slavin, which would open him up for a little more offense because he's been concerned with being the defensive guy for Shane Goss to spare. 5-on-5, he had heavy utilization where he had 5 goals, or all of his points were 5-on-5, all of his points were 5-on-5, where it was 5 goals, 6 primary assists, 5 secondary assists. On-ice goals against of only 2.6 per 60, which is pretty damn good for a third pair, if you ask me. Expected goals of 55.17 and a goal differential of 5-on-5 goal differential of -6. So for some of the matchups that he was getting, especially on the road, I think that's pretty solid. What do you guys think?
Go ahead.
I would say probably with Sean Walker that what made me happy, obviously, because there's going to be that comparable Sean Walker to Brett Pesce. What I like about Walker that I did not like about Pesce is that the guy can skate, and he can also defend very well. So, I mean, I know Brett Pesce. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that Pesce might be a little bit better at defending than Walker, but regardless, I think Walker is a very good, cheap option because by the time we signed him, we knew there was going to be hard decisions because of the cap. But I think they did really good with this signing. And considering we only are going to have him for like 5 years at $3-something million, to me, is a steal.
I agree.
Yep, agree.
Yeah, I like Walker. Yeah, no, I like Sean Walker. Been very good. Surprise. I think I agree with what's been said. Let's see him play with Slavin and see if that matters. I'm not opposed to that.
Alrighty. So the next player is going to be Shane Gostisbehere. If anybody wants to put their grades in the chat, I'll just go ahead and bump over to that one now. Alrighty, so this guy has seen some pretty heavy utilization, actually. So he sees very limited penalty kill time, but he's been on the power play pretty much the entire time, basically the first unit the entire time. And he, in 70 games, has 1831 average time on ice, 7 goals, 38 assists, 45 points, individual expected goals of 7.57. So some good consistency there with where he's expected to score. 66 blocks, plus minus of 1, expected goals of 65.31, and a shooting percentage of 5.79 for a defenseman. I think that's pretty damn good. 5-on-5 individual, he had 3 goals, 3 primary assists, 7 secondary assists for a total of 13 points. On ice goals 4 of 2.7, expected goals 9.04, and a 5-on-5 goal differential of +7. And I think that this guy has been quite the steal this offseason. The only reason the power play wasn't, I won't say the only reason, but the predominant reason the power play wasn't worse is because of him, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think.
I love Gostisbehere. Loved him the first time we got him. Loved him the second time we got him. Sorry, Brandon. I'm still a big fan of Brady Shea and miss him a great deal.
Kick. Where's the kick button?
But even according to your own metrics, Brady Shea won that battle between the two of those players.
That was a bullshit thing, though, Sam. That was just for fun.
But I love Shane Gostisbehere. Heck of a player. Heck of an ad. I've seen some things on there that's like, well, we should trade Shane Gostisbehere. And I'm like, what? Are you high? Like, we're not going to trade our power play quarterback because dude's going to quarterback that second power play till his contract expires. Especially when you add Nikishin to quarterback the first one. And even to begin with, Gostisbehere is probably going to start next season quarterbacking 1, and Nikishin's going to quarterback 2. So I love Gostisbehere. I love offensive defensemen. Griff and I will go back and forth about what matters more, offense or defense, and coaching styles. But I love what Gostisbehere brings to the blue line. And in a year where you lost a lot of offense, Gostisbehere was a piece you picked up to help replace some of that loss. And I think he more than admirably did what he did, and only in 69 games because he didn't even play the full season.
Yeah, I love Gostisbehere as well. When I remember the trade deadline, it was pretty. Not the trade deadline, free agency last summer. You know, it was a pretty grim day for us Canes fans, just because so many unknowns. But I remember when I saw this come across, Twitter that he had agreed with Carolina. It was a little late, I believe. Later in the day,
like 2:00 or something. When
it's kind of unexpected. I didn't expect it, and then I saw it, and it kind of picked up my hopes a little bit. And I thought he had a good year. I would, I didn't realize he only played 70 games, but I would have liked to see a little more consistency out of him. He had that really hot start, and then he disappeared for like 2 months, 3 months. And not disappeared, but just kind of, quit producing at the rate he was, which is hard to maintain, I get. But I would have liked to just see a little more consistency throughout the year. And then, it's hard for me to give him a higher grade than a B when the power play was just so bad. So, like, at the end of the season. So, and that's not all on him, but, that's why he's got a B and not a C. So. There you go.
So with Gostisbehere, like, again, I think he's been good, and that's the reason why I gave him an A. I didn't give him an A+, and that's part of the reason is what Matt explained, in the fact that he kind of did go through a dry spell there. And there was also a time there with Walker, I think it was like toward the middle of the season, I believe, where that pair was just letting letting in goals, but regardless goes, I think he's really good on the power play, where as a whole the power play has suffered. He's a bright spot, kind of what I would say.
And speaking of his power play numbers, I think that this is a pretty impressive stat line. In 239 minutes and 36 seconds on the power play, he has 4 goals, 23 assists for a total of 27 points, individual expected goals of 3.38, and expected goals for of 34.1, on ice goals for of 40, and an on ice goals for of per 60 of 10.1. So thanks to that hot start, his numbers look a little bit more consistent than what they are. Like Griff was saying, if he had maintained more consistency like that, we're talking about this guy being a 35, 40-point player on the power play and the rest of those metrics there being way higher. If he can kick that back into high gear and help revive the power play during the postseason here, he can get back to playing the way that he was at the beginning of the season. He'll be very impactful that way.
And I would say his defense is underrated too. I think he
Yes.
plays pretty good defense. I mean, the only thing, like with what I see here with his stats, if he can get his points up a little bit more 5-on-5, he could be a very good threat. Very good. So, yep.
All righty. So the next player is going to be Dmitry Orlov. I'm sure that this will cause absolutely no controversy among any of the participants.
This is Sam's favorite player.
Yeah. And then, speaking of Sam, what's that term in Congress when someone abstains from voting? Because that's what I'm just going to say for AB for the rest of the. Because he didn't. I'm looking through it on my Google Drive right now. He didn't fill out any of the other ones.
I think it's abstain. You just don't vote.
Okay, so AB is hereby known as abstain. So
he's recusing himself.
That's what I was looking for. Alrighty. So over to Dima now. 76 games played, 1960 average time on ice, 6 goals, 22 assists for a total of 28 points. Individual expected goals of 6.63, 60 blocks. Here's something that we do have to point out here that he has done well. 101 hits, one of the few guys who, bring some physicality to the Canes. Plus minus is 16. Expected goals, I forgot to put that in there, my bad. It's close to what his 5-on-5 one is, though, which I think that's actually also 56.20. AB recused, Griff B minus, Sam D, Sam Wallace D plus, and I gave him a C minus personally because I felt like his stretch of games recently was significantly better than around the middle of the season where he was dealing with the injury he was dealing with. So I don't want to say he was really, really bad, but I felt like we could have got more out of him. Maybe him dealing with whatever injury he was dealing with and continuing to play on it was part of it. It most certainly was, I would imagine. So you guys tell me what you think.
I mean,
my buddy's in here.
Who?
Devil's Joint.
Oh, Dmitry Orlov. I think he gets trashed just for. Look, he's a big part of our penalty kill and why our penalty kill is what it is. And there may be some times that he struggled, like, he's been that he turned the puck over. He struggled defensively at certain points in the season. But if you take the season as a whole, I don't think he's been as bad as he gets, as his reputation, or I wouldn't even say his reputation. I don't think he's been as bad as a lot of people say that he has.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe he was dealing with injury there right before he went out, where the entire fan base was ready to burn him at the stake. I just don't think that, I don't think he was as bad as it was being made out to be. I think he's a great penalty killer. I think he's very physical. He he uses his body when on a blue line where a lot of the guys don't, like you just said. And I think he's going to have a really, really good playoffs this year, just like he did last year. And I mean, if you remember last year, that pairing, him and Chatfield, was our best. And they were our third pair, but they were playing first pair minutes, getting first pair matchups. And I expect to see something similar this year.
I have nothing more to add on Dmitry Orlov than what I have already stated on the player.
Oh, come on. I want to. I want to hear the banter. Come on, Sam.
No, I got nothing else to add about him. D
He's-
equals disaster and a joke.
He's
I'm just
recusing
gonna
himself.
I'm gonna stick with the disaster and a joke now because
Just go ahead and slam your little gavel and say I reclaim my time. Just go ahead and do it. You know you want to.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, I think all of us to some degree or another were hoping to get a little bit more out of a $7.75 million player, even if it was short term and no trade protection or anything like that. But it's like,
That's the biggest thing I think with Orlov is because
yeah, if
of
he was
that
making $4 million,
big
we're not
contract.
having a discussion like this.
yeah, and I think that matters to me, and I'll go to that then. The salary for me is what taints him. Maybe Griff, maybe if he comes back at like 3 million and I watch him play, maybe I'll view him in different, colored glasses. But it's so hard to look at that cap hit and view him as anything but what I have described him as already. Mainly because I don't think we should have given them that kind of deal to begin with.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Well, you had to, and you had to give him that money to get him here at that point in time. I mean, he could have, if we didn't give it to him, somebody else would have, and I think they really wanted him at the time. So, I mean, he
played so well for Boston. That was why.
and he was, he was probably the best free agent in free agency that year.
We got the top two that year, him and Bunting.
Yeah, it was a weak class, but I I don't know. I like the guy, man. I do. I like his game.
Alrighty. So the next one here, there will be little controversy about Jalen Chatfield. 79 games played, 1853 average time on ice, 7 goals, 11 assists, total of 18 points. He fell just 4 points short of his career high in points from last year, which was 22. And I think part of the reason for that is with Pesci and Shea being gone, him and Dima were getting some tougher matchups. So I think that's part of where that little bit of offense went. But overall, really, really happy with that. Individual expected goals of 4.03. Despite that, he scored above expected with 7, 64 blocks, 64 hits, a plus minus of plus 22, expected goals percentage of 54.48, and a shot percentage of 6.14. For Chatfield, that shot percentage is actually really damn good, considering what his role is and the type of player he is. And he had one of the lowest on-ice goals against per 60 5-on-5 on the team, which was 2.3, and he had one of the lowest ones on the penalty kill as well at 4.6. So, guys, I gave Jalen Chatfield an A. Sam Wallace gave him a B+. Sam Driscoll gave him a B+. Griff gave him an A. AB is not here. So, let's talk about Jalen Chatfield. This is one of those guys that just needed to continue doing what he was doing before, in my opinion. He did that. He maintained his consistency. He took on a bigger role with Brett Pesci being gone. I have nothing but good things to say about how Jalen Chatfield has executed this season.
Yeah, I like Chatfield. The only reason I dropped him down, I would have had him at an A as well, is because he also went through a spell around the same time that Orlov did, where it was really just kind of like icky. But I think he's what kept that pair intact for most of the year, and he's been very, very good. He's a guy that I think in a lot of teams would be a first pair defenseman. And I think we just got to wait and see what he does in the playoffs this year. I'm actually excited to see what he does. I think he's got a little bit of an offensive flair to his game that doesn't always show because of the role that he's in. But, I don't know. I've always kind of felt like when Burns was playing poorly, why not put Chatfield as the quarterback of that power play? Just see what happens, because Chatfield can skate, and I think he's got a nose for the net that he doesn't get an opportunity very often to utilize.
Yeah, I love Chatty, man. He's awesome. I love his story. I love, he was one of those guys, undrafted guys that made it. Now he's a top 4 NHL defenseman, arguably a top pair defenseman, like Sam said, on some teams. And he's you know what you're going to get out of Chatfield, man. Every night, you know what you're going to get out of him. He shows up and he performs well night in, night out. You very rarely see a dip in his performance. You know, he's durable, he's dependable, he's just everything you want out of a defenseman. And you know, I love I love the bow and arrow Selly. I love it all. So
Yeah, and I mean, I agree. Chatfield's been playing excellent. It's interesting because I mean, we got him from Vancouver. I think he played limited ice time in his very first year here, and then he just blossomed. So, love seeing how the guy plays. To me, he's a little bit like Slavin. The thing is that the only difference is that I would agree with. He's a better skater than Slavin, and I think out of I think probably the second most important defenseman, if we were to rate the most important ones, Slavin to me is number one, but number two, Jalen Chatfield, because he's fast and he can defend very, very well.
Yeah, and I feel like the one big difference between Chatfield and Slavin, Chatfield's gap control is really, really aggressive. He's like a freight train. He's up in your face before you have a
Yes.
chance to do anything. So if you do manage to burn him, you're gone. Slavin, on the other hand, he's very technical with his. He's all about the timing. You think you're going where you want to, but then Slavin kind of dictates where you're going. He puts you where he wants to put you, and the next thing you know, bam, poke check, it's off your stick. But Chatfield, on the other hand, it's just like he just doesn't give you a chance to do anything. He's up in your face before you can even think about it.
And he has a mean streak too. I mean, remember that
does.
Washington game?
Yeah, I heard some things at the Washington game the following week, the one up here, that I was kind of like, Brandon, you're quitting your job tomorrow. Don't get in any legal trouble tonight. Now is not the fucking time. I just had to let a lot of shit go that night, and Jeremy witnessed it. So let's see here. All right, so the next one will be zero controversy whatsoever. Negative controversy, if you ask me. Brent Burns. 82 games played. We already knew that, though. Average time on ice of 20:57, 6 goals, 23 assists for a total of 29 points. Individual expected goals of 6.63, 98 blocks, 11 hits, plus minus a 7. Expected goals of 51.74, shooting percentage of 3.4. And he was utilized. He actually, for all of his faults, his penalty kill numbers here that I have cited were actually really solid. I know he's out there with Slavin, but still he does his part. On ice goals against per 60 of 4.9, which pretty damn good for someone who's utilized as heavily on the penalty kill as he is. I didn't put his power play numbers up here because in the grand scheme of the power play, he actually wasn't on it that much this year since he spent most of his time in the second unit, and that only saw the last 30 seconds of most power plays. Like, I'm kind of rethinking giving him a D at times, but I just miss that guy that we had in 22-23, man. That was unreal that year. But you guys go ahead.
So I gave him a D minus.
Shit,
Not-
my bad. Hold up. Sorry about
not
that.
because, and it shows the fact that I do have some respect for the player. He's 40 years old, a veteran of the league for a long time, one of the best defensemen to play the game in my mind, Hall of Famer. I didn't give him an F because I took that into account, and I also took into account the last 3 weeks. I think he's been actually pretty solid, but it's just hard. And I will be 100% honest. I was so horrified at his game in the playoffs last year. I've never gotten over that. And I think there was nothing he was going to do this year to make me get over that. And I am the first to admit that it would have taken him getting probably 60 points before, for me to get over that playoffs. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation. And it was, I see him get, I never see him have a good game. And I know he has good games. I know that they exist, but I only ever notice the bad games and him getting walked. And it just agitates the absolute snot out of me. And I know it's coming from a place that, Brandon, you and I kind of sat outside the arena after the game 6 against the Rangers. I sat in my seat for a long time after game 6 against the Rangers. And it was just seared in mind that, Freddie was horrific and Burns was horrific in that playoffs. And I've struggled to get past that. For those two players specifically, I have struggled to get past that. So that's kind of where my grade comes in, fair or not. Others can be the judge of that. But that's kind of where I'm at. But I did recognize his Hall of Fame worthiness and his, the reality that he's one of the best defensemen to play the game in our era of watching the game, which is why I didn't give him enough.
Yeah, and I would add with Brent Burns, I mean, I think the biggest thing that probably goes against him is the fact that we brought him in to produce a lot of points, and he really hasn't. Obviously, he did do that his first season. I will give him credit for that, but obviously it has fallen off tremendously. So I think that has been a problem. Another thing, too, he's not the best skater. So, yeah, he has gotten walked many times this season. But I will say, when it comes to defensemen, that I will defend Burns with is the fact that, I mean, when you're a defenseman, your ultimate goal is to play defense. Now, you can have different styles. And I think Brent Burns this season, even though his offensive production has gone down a lot, I think we've seen him kind of transform a little bit into more of a two-way defensive type of defenseman. So that's why I kind of give him a D.
Y'all ready?
Go for it.
I'm not on the Brent Burns sucks bandwagon that a lot of Kane's Twitter or Kane's X seems to be on. I don't think that a lot of his missteps this year, I know there's, I know he's 40 years old, and I know that we say, age is undefeated and blah, 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 blah. I get all that. But when I look at his body of work this year, I don't believe that his mistakes are related to his lack of physical ability. To me, his mistakes have been mental. And you can fix mental. You can't fix physical ability, well, I mean, you can by practice, right, and all that stuff. But, like a mental lapse or a mental mistake is easier to overcome than having to rework your game, whatever. So that's just how I see it. And I think a lot of his drop off, his extreme drop off in production has been that he hasn't had power play time, and how bad our power play unit is as a whole this year, and really last year too. I mean, we had a really good power play during the season. It was like, top 3 or something in the regular season.
I think it was 4th or something but it was up there.
It was, but but then again, we had, Svetch had a really good stretch last year. Then Gensel came in toward the end, and Michael Bunting was on the power play for a while. He was pretty good on it. Anyway, I think there's explanations is what I'm saying. I'm not excuses. I'm not trying to say excuses. I'm trying to say there's actual legitimate explanations for his drop off in production that we're used to seeing throughout his career. And, and to be honest, at 40 years old, he might have to play a different game than he has played his whole career, just because he's not the same player. But I do think he's an effective defenseman. I've seen him make good plays night in, night out. I see him do well on the penalty kill. Again, he's one of the reasons our penalty kill is what it is. And I'm not saying he's been great by any means. I just don't think he deserves all the hate. And I think that he did have a bad playoffs last year, and I pray that this year is different. But I believe that if he just owns his role and doesn't try to be something that he can't be or something that he's not, and he just focuses on defending, and I think he'll be fine. I think he can be effective. And I think that he has, other than a few, I won't say a few, several mental mistakes, turnovers. But again, I think it's in his head.
Alrighty. No, that's pretty valid too, because and those of us in our audience know we don't hate any of these guys. We like all of the players. We really do. It's like we just try and make our observations and assessments of things. I like Burnsy. I like him a lot. I'm definitely not on the deport Brent Burns to China bandwagon. I know I joke about saying stuff like that, but I'm not on board with that. But to be playing at his age is pretty remarkable. To be a effective NHL player to any degree at 40 years old is pretty remarkable. So that's why it's like, I think we can all cut him a little bit of slack. We really can.
Because I'm the same age as him, and I know how I feel, and there's no freaking way that I could get out there and do that. So like,
oh yeah, I feel you on that. Yeah, it's impressive that he's still playing at this age. I just think that, like, more than anything, I would just love to see him do 2022, 2023 all over again. That was what I was hoping for at least 2 more years, or at least something close to it. Because that goal that he scored in Game 5, that was absolutely I was at that game, so it's like that was really awesome when he did that.
Maybe we'll get one more good run here.
I mean, if anybody can do it at 40, it's him. It's like, if there's anybody who can do it, it's him. So I'm hoping that, a few weeks from now, and I'll be like, you know what? I was wrong about Brent Burns. He was just sandbagging until the playoffs started so he could go, ha ha, y'all thought I was tired. Ha ha ha. That's what I'm going to hope for. All right, so the next one, this one definitely will not have any controversy. Jacob Slavin. 80 games played. He got to have the last 2 off, which is good because he looked pretty exhausted to me before that. 21-34 average time on ice, 6 goals, 21 assists for a total of 27 points, and an individual expected goals of 6.52. 136 shot blocks. This guy is a machine when it comes to that, plus 16. For the first time, he had a individual goal percentage or expected goal percentage below 50 at 49. And then 5-on-5, he had 6 goals, 4 primary assists, 8 secondary assists for a total of 18 points. On ice goals against of only 2.7. His expected goals percentage 5-on-5 was still 56.44, and he broke even in the goal differential, 63 apiece. Penalty kill, of course, remarkable there, 25 blocks. 25 on-ice goals against at a rate of 6.4 per 60 and an on-ice save percentage of 84.2. He contributes heavily to that penalty kill. He contributes to everything defensively on this team. Guys, we all have nothing but good things to say about Jacob Slavin, not to mention he played some extra games this year as well. And if people didn't know who he was before the Four Nations face-off, they know now. Griff gave him an A, Sam Driscoll gave him an A, Sam Wallace gave him an A+, and I gave him an A+. So there is nothing but good things to say about Jacob Slavin.
Yeah, I just don't give A+ to anybody. That's the only reason.
I did.
If I got to give somebody one, go ahead,
I didn't give him an A+ just because I thought he seemed off the last few weeks, and I think that's probably because he was hurt. And I truly believe this week that he's getting off will do wonders for him, and I expect that to come. But I did choose to penalize him for the last few weeks. For that play, because we don't know officially if it's injury, other than I think he had his first minus 4 or 5 game he's ever had in his career was like this year, which, it's hard to not, punish a player for that. Again, it takes a lot for me as well to give an A+. And I didn't think it was warranted this year for Jacob Slavin. His entire career, I think I've given him A+. So I know Sam Wallace is about as angry as he can be for Griff and I not giving him A+. But
I'm not mad at Griff because I don't know how he's going to react. But I know how you're going to react, Sam, and I'm mad.
Yeah, plus it's a much shorter walk for him to get to you than it is to get to Griff.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
Lock your door, Sam. Well, to be fair, if Sam were to get mad at Griff would just push him down the seats that we sit at. And say,
oh yeah, y'all are up in the 300s. He might just Spartan kick you, and then you end up landing in the suites in the 200s.
No. I'm more afraid. I'm more afraid I'll trash talk Orlov or Burns, and Griff will kick me down the stairs.
Come on.
Nah, he won't do none of that.
Oh, I'm kidding. He's being very generous. We struck a deal, so I get to go to game 1. So good guy, Griff.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy arguing with you, Sam.
Hey, we have a good time. We've been to some games together. We've had a great time.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. But I mean, I agree. I think Slavin is the best defensive defenseman. I do think he did have his lapses. And what's funny enough, honestly, I would say if it comes to grading his performance at the Four Nations, I give him an A because he was just insanely good at a whole nother level. I'm just like, dang. Like, I know he was playing good for us, really, really good, like he usually does. Before Nations, I was like, man, he took it up another level. And I do think that does require maybe some conversation of because of the pairing and all that type of stuff. But I think he's been excellent. I read an article recently on the Athletics saying that Slavin's kind of like vanilla, nothing flashy, but it's good or reliable, and that's what Slavin is.
I think that's a good way to put it. Alrighty. Anything else to say about Father Slavin before we move on?
No, but I just text you guys in the group chat. I'm gonna have to take off at 9.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize we were gonna go this long, but
yeah, I didn't. Well, I mean, we never plan on going this long. It just kind of happens. Alrighty. So for the next one here, Jackson Blake. 80 games played, 1351 average time on ice, 17 goals, 17 assists for a total of 34 points. When needed in the dot, he actually had a 50% individual expected goals of 11.97, expected goals 67.08, shot percentage of 12. This kid creates a lot of chances. That's what he does best, is working in tight, making some time and space for his teammates and distributing those little 3 and 4 foot passes in the process of it, baiting defenders, getting them to like fall for anything that he's doing. Then he distributes the puck, and then it's up to the guy who has it. This kid is going to be really, really good in the future, I think. Griff gave him a B+, Sam Driscoll gave him an A+, Sam Wallace gave him an A, I gave him a B+. Guys, elaborate.
I think he's a 30 to 40 goal scorer. Dude's got the best hands on the team now that Natchez is gone. Again, I don't give A+s out very often. I gave one here because everything he did was just confounding expectations. And I have given him a grade based off of expectations, just like I do every player. So good for Jackson Blake for having a better season than I could ever imagine him having.
I would say about Jackson Blake, I don't know if I view him as a 30 to 40 goal player, because to me what dazzled me more wasn't really his shot, it was more of his stick handling ability. But boy, Blake, I would say probably more of my view of his potential is more of like a 25 to 30 goal player, but you need those 25 to 30 goal players. So I think I love him. It's just amazing
I'll be right back, guys.
okay.
We healthy scratched him in these last 2 games, because heading into the season, we didn't, or I would say heading into the preseason, we never thought of Jackson Blake making this team. We never did. And now he's putting up insane points, and Brentwood's like, we got to keep this guy healthy. So just great remarks to the guy, very young. The only thing is he needs to build up a little bit more strength, I would say, because he has gotten a little bit pushed around. But other than that, boy, he is so talented. One of the best handling ability players on the team.
I think, I agree with Sam Driscoll. I think he's going to be a 30-40. He could be a 30-40 goal scorer. He's going to be a Hurricane forever. I don't see them letting him go anywhere ever, unless his game falls off a cliff. But I see Seth Jarvis potential in this guy. Like, I think he's good defensively too. I think he's got a defensive side of his game as well. Especially for, he's great on the forecheck, retrieving pucks in the corners. I mean, sometimes you see him come out with a puck and you're just like, how? I love the guy. He's going to be playing on Aho's wing, I believe, for a long time. And I wouldn't be I mean, we might see a little drop off next year for a sophomore slump, but if you remember, Seth Jarvis scored 17 goals his rookie season as well. Less games, but he did. And if Jackson Blake would have got half of the chances that he had, through the middle of the season where nothing was going in for him. I mean, he could be 25 to 30 goals this year. He wasn't getting the bounces, but I'm really excited to watch him in the playoffs. I think his game is going to translate well into the playoffs, just like his big brother over there, Seth Jarvis. So,
And his
Brandon
father was a NHL player too.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So, yeah, he came out of nowhere. I remember we were putting together our rosters throughout the summer, and I was just like, man, I just don't. He just wasn't somebody that I thought was going to be here. I thought it was going to be Nadeau. I kept calling for Nadeau to be on the opening night roster until we saw him in the preseason, and I was like, well, maybe Blake has a chance. And then absolutely the right call to leave him with the team all year. So,
are we kind of like in limbo?
Yeah, Brandon was like, he's like, I'll be right back, and then he disappeared. So,
well, everybody should listen to Caniac Sessions and Caniac Report. Just saying.
Yeah, I believe tomorrow night we're gonna do. You guys are live tomorrow at noon, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
live
we are.
tomorrow at noon. We're gonna have special guest Tim Donnelly will join us tomorrow as well at some time between 12 and 12:30.
All right, boys. Unfortunately, I got to kill this early too. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us. I will do the rest of the grades at some point in the near future, but I just got I got something I got to take care of real quick that I forgot about before we start the move and everything, before we actually start doing it. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. We will see you next time.
Right on.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks.